We're going to read the scripture together in just a moment. I'm Pastor Corey. Welcome to Venue Church. This is a lovely Pastor Erin. She always garners a little more of that because she's prettier than I am. We're so glad that you're here today. It's my girl Ailish's birthday today. Yeah. Oh, did we just do a bass lick for that? I like that. Happy birthday, dear Ailish. Happy birthday to you. All right. Come on. Ailish, you physically did what you had to do, and that was to turn another year older. But I love you. Your dad loves you. Are you enjoying everybody looking at you? Nope. Good. That's my job. Also, we have some friends in the house, Pastor Mike and Elisa from Lloydminster now with Associated Family. Now, Pastors Mike and Elisa, I want to honor them in front of you because they were the pastors for, I think, 18 years of Grace Baptist Church in town here. And some of you actually were under their leadership for years and years, and you loved them. And I want you to make sure that you send them a little love their way. But I want you to know that the work that you did in this city for those years, we are actually reaping the harvest of. Thank you for being faithful to the Lord. All right. Today I'm going to be preaching about that robot that you saw when you walked in here. It's time. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to be preaching about David and Goliath. Did you know that the person that fabricated that robot made it the size of Goliath? Because he was fascinated with the race of the Nephilim, which is the race of giants in the Bible. And Goliath of Gath was of the race of Nephilim. So that robot out there is 6 cubits and a span, which is 9'9". And I'm going to preach about that. Why do you have a robot? Mostly to blow 8-year-old boys' minds about church. And also because it's a robot, and robots are fun until their eyes turn red and they take over the world. But today we're going to read about the giants that we face. And so as we get serious and we talk about the giants that we face, I want us to take David's approach to Goliath as kind of the template in how we beat giants today. I'm going to read this first part, and then we'll read a verse together. Goliath walked out toward David with his shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. I don't know what that means. What's a ruddy-faced boy? Like wind-swept? Okay, nobody knows what that means. But catch that, sneering in contempt. The giants that you face in your finance, in your heart, in your mind, in your addiction, the giants that you face are sneering in contempt at you. And there's something added to it that hurts. He says, am I a dog? This is before Doodles. Am I a dog? Before this was a compliment. He roared at David, that you come at me with a stick, and he cursed David by the names of his gods. Now you got to get that part. By the names of his gods. Giants aren't just giants. They are serving other gods. And that's maybe why you're struggling, is because you're just dealing with the giant, but you're not dealing with the gods behind the giant. All right, come over here. He says, I'll give your flesh to the birds and wild animals. Goliath yelled. Now I want to read this verse together. David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Touch your neighbor and say, what does ruddy-faced actually mean, though? All right, you can have a seat, everybody. What if I told you that the thing that intimidates you the most now, that giant in your life, what if I told you that today's worry, today's fear, today's panic, today's obsession, every prayer is about it. You wake up in the morning, you're thinking about it, you're talking to your spouse, it's in the back of your mind. It's feeding worry and fear and anger and depression and anxiety. What if I told you that a year from now, that wasn't going to be there anymore? What if I told you that the way that you're thinking about it is wrong, and that's why there's still a giant there? What if I told you that you don't think about Goliath the way that David thought about Goliath? And that it's your thinking actually that's keeping it, because the power of God hasn't changed. So why is the giant still in my life? We're not dealing with the giant in the right way. Thanks, worship team. There's a factor about giants that is an intimidation factor. So this is not like some problems that we have that are like sneak attacks. This is a giant sneering in contempt, overlording your life, just demanding attention, demanding focus, demanding your thought life and your heart. And there is something about it that is just overarching and an intimidation factor. But I want to tell you that what you're intimidated by now, you won't be intimidated by a year from now. Who remembers going to kindergarten for your first day? Yeah. Nobody. You know why? Because you're all old. I see a lot of old faces in the crowd. Who remembers kindergarten? I mean, you know what I learned in kindergarten? You know what day one was? It was in a cave. We learned about fire. This is called fire, everybody. We learned that the wheel has just been invented this year. That's how old I am. Kindergarten. I don't remember much about kindergarten, but it's intimidating. It's like going to a small group for the first time. We give you a name tag, and you're like, it's my first day of school. I don't have any friends. I don't know anybody. But 5 minutes in, you start finding some friends. But there's that intimidation factor of like new experiences or challenges or whatever that looks like. Now, I remember learning something in kindergarten that I still do if I have to, and that is if you want to color in the lines, you just put your finger on the line. Some kid showed me that. I'm like, I could live to be 100, and I wouldn't have thought of that. That was brilliant. Now, I went to kindergarten in a town of 500 people, and so one time my mom, you guys know Pastor Beth? One time my mom, she was driving me home from kindergarten, and my bow and arrows were in the car because I always liked them in the car when she would pick me up. And she realized when I got home, the bow was there, but the arrows were not. And she's like, what happened to the arrows? And I had been shooting them out the window at people on the way. So that's what I remember about kindergarten, and it wasn't even about kindergarten, you know. I used to get so tired and exhausted being in kindergarten that I would fall asleep on the way home in a town of 500 people. You know, like we passed 3 houses and we're there, and Corey's like sound asleep, no arrows, got my bow. You know, when your kids go to school, it's intimidating for a child to go to school for the first day. You know, Ailish went to kindergarten for her first day, and she was in there. Pastor Aaron took her, and she's like, okay, we're going to go find your desk. But what they didn't know until that moment is Katie walks in, and Katie's 3 years younger, and Katie had packed her lunch that morning. Mom didn't miss it. Mom missed that part, packed her lunch, walked in behind Ailish and says, where's my desk? And Mom's like, you're not going to school, baby. And she lost her Holy Spirit on the spot in the middle of that kindergarten class. And, you know, guys, now's maybe a good point to, I've done some stupid stuff as a dad, but I've never done anything like that. The intimidation factor. Yeah, that was nice. I'm scoring husband points here all over the place. I'll get to sleep on the couch now. But now Katie has her own car. She bought a car with cash. I didn't give her any of it. She bought a car. It's a hot car. It's got like 50 horsepower. And she's going to SAIT now. And there's this new challenge that's happening of like, I got to do this thing. I got to get a car insured. And I'm like, you know, here's the funny thing about the giant that you face. It's all that you can think about. But I hate to break it to you, but tomorrow, the next chapter has another giant in it. And you spend all of your time begging God. Every prayer time is about this giant. Every prayer time is like, God, if you could just deal with this giant. And God's like, well, yeah, I will. But tomorrow there's another giant, and it's probably a bigger giant than financial struggles when you're 5 aren't big. The more you have, the more you can lose, right? The more people you have, the more you can. There's this progression of giants. You know, when I moved, we moved to Los Angeles from a town of 500 people, and I went into grade 1 in LA. And like new country, it did not look like it looked in rural Canada. They had a course called phonics. Did they still have this in schools? Remember phonics? It was like I don't even know what it is. Hooked on phonics worked for me, right? But I didn't even know what it was because my kindergarten didn't have it. And so I go there, and there's people I don't know. It's LA. I don't know what phonics is. I lost my Holy Spirit in the classroom in grade 1 trying to fit in, you know. The same classroom that one day I got so comfortable in that I decided I would eat a strawberry eraser to see if it tasted like strawberries. It did not. It tasted like every other eraser that I tried to eat. There's this intimidation factor in our lives. And then you go to the next intimidation factor and the next one and the next one. You know, as I went through school, I'm the firstborn. So we got any firstborns in the house? These are the only people that did any work growing up. The only people who had these things called bedtimes, curfews, rules. But when we went through school, like there was nobody to deal with the bullies that we dealt with, so we had to deal with them. But then my brother comes along, and you know, every job I got, my brother had a handed job of like, well, my brother needs work, and they're like, well, you're okay. I guess that the not eldest would probably be okay too, right? Yeah, you get like grandfathered into stuff. I came around the school corner one time, and there was a bully who was older than my brother named Jonathan. Everybody say Jonathan. Picking on my brother. And I remember I was livid. I'm like, there is one person who picks on my brother, and that's this kid. And I'm like, Jonathan, you need to rethink your life right now. I'm like, Ryan, go into the school. And I'm like, Jonathan, we're coming to Jesus right now. I'm like, you got to stop this. But Jonathan had been practicing spin kicks in grade 6, and so he tried to spin kick me, and I grabbed his foot because in grade 6, you're not great at that. And so I grabbed his foot and just pushed him over backwards, and I'm like, Jonathan, stop. And he kept spin kicking me. And I just kept pushing him over, and I'm like, Jonathan, this is patient me. It's going to be violent me in a second if any of those spin kicks get through. I'm like, rethink, Jonathan. Finally got tired and went back into school in a sulk. But here's the funny thing, is that the giant to my brother wasn't a giant to me. You're not thinking about your giants right. I know it's all you can manage, it's all you can handle, but you're not thinking about your giants right. Because, I mean, David was no size comparable to Goliath at all. But people in this room have beaten your giants. You know, it's always irritating when you're talking to somebody about something you're struggling with, and they don't struggle with that anymore. And they're like, oh, well, there's a way that we can deal with this. But it's irritating because you're like, no, there's not. And that's why I'm mad. But there is not a giant that you face that somebody in this room hasn't beaten by the grace of God yet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But somebody grew up in childhood trauma. And in your mind, you're like, God, I would have peace and I would have if that didn't happen. But you're asking God to, change time? You're asking God to, some of us get married to somebody, you know, if you grew up without a dad, but then you get married to a guy that you kind of want to be your dad too, right? Like, I want you to say the things my dad should have said. Or I want you to provide for me in the way that my mom gambled it all away or drank it all away. I want you to do the thing and do the thing so that I can feel fixed. But that's unfair to them, and they're not going to be able to do that. But somebody has so sinned against people that I'm preaching, and you're like, yeah, Pastor, I'm so fractured, we're so past that there's no way in the world that my life could look like that. And God is like, who are you telling is impossible? Like God hasn't fixed somebody worse than you. Like God hasn't brought a beautiful mosaic out of pain and broken separation and unfaithfulness, and like God hasn't fixed somebody just like you already about 1 billion times. You know, we're just not, you got anger issues, long-standing lying issues, or lust, or here's a couple of key thoughts that we're going to start in here. And this is going to hurt your feelings a little bit. It's a little weird that it's going to, but it's going to. I hate to break it to you, but your giant isn't really about you. So the thing that you're facing, the thing that hurts you the most and causes you the sleepless nights. How do I say it like this? It's not thinking about you as much as you're thinking about it. You're obsessed with it, but it doesn't care about you at all. Just give me a moment. Jesus said, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I, Jesus says, have come that they might have life and have it to the full. So the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Well, that's what a giant is doing in an intimidating factor, right? So the author of every giant that you face, whether you caused it or whether somebody made a decision, or the author is the enemy of your soul, the devil, who's trying to steal from you, who's trying to kill you, and he's trying to destroy you. Jesus said, I've come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. But this giant is stealing this life, which is not honoring to the Lord. He doesn't, it would be like me watching my child in addiction and being okay with that. You think that God's angry, you're punishing, it has nothing to do with God. It has to do with this place that the giant occupies in your mind. Let me put it to you like this. It's kind of nice if we would admit it to ourselves. It's kind of nice struggling with a giant because it makes you feel a bit special. Right? Like, all this focus trying to hurt me. I must be something special. The giant doesn't care about you at all. Your pain is not its purpose. It's a byproduct. Do you know what the giant is trying to do? He's trying to use you to get at who he really hates, which is God. Doesn't care about you at all. You're nothing to a giant. You are nothing to the devil. Think about Eve and the serpent spending all this time on Eve. You think that Eve felt pretty special, all this temptation coming her way. It's a weird thought. I just have this thought. I think it's true. Like, oh my, I must be special to be targeted in this manner. The devil was using her to get back at God. I think if you started thinking about your giant and that addiction to that fantasy world you've created, that the devil's like sucked you into, and now you're so far gone that nobody can connect with you, and then you get mad at them for not connecting with you, but you have this other world that isn't real. The thing that tricks you into that doesn't care about you at all. See, the devil lost the kids in the divorce because he's crazy. But now he's using the kids to get back at dad. Starting to get it? What giants do is get you obsessed with self. Well, if only I can. One day I'll be, me. Well, the giant's not even thinking about you. It's only using, and the more you obsess with self, the more he can use you to hurt God. Because God gets hurt when his kids get hurt. If you'd get angry about that, instead of like feeling flattered about that, and start being like, I'm not going to get used to hurt God anymore. You can't use me like that. Feel like that's better than you're responding. I know you're thinking about it. Why would it steal 4 pennies from a 2-year-old? It doesn't need your stuff. It doesn't need your peace of mind. It doesn't need anything from you. It's just trying to hurt God. It says, Goliath cursed David, cursed Israel by the name of his gods. He was working for somebody else by the name of his gods. This was never about you. This is about the God that you serve and the gods that are coming against you. Fight the battle in the right field. No wonder we're losing. False belief, giants are all about me. No, the truth is giants aren't about you. Here's our second false belief, the giant is just too big. It's never the size of the giant. Ever. It's the size of the room it's in. So when I was a kid, I was severely sick with asthma. I would be up at night feeling like I'm going to die. Like, I didn't meet Jesus first. I met the devil first because I was demonically oppressed. And you're like, oh yeah, did your head spin around? I'm like, just about. It was crazy. There's no diagnosis for it. There's nothing. But I felt targeted by the devil. But it's funny how big the devil is at nighttime in your room. You know, I walked past our robot out there. I walked past it outside against that big wall. We're going to put him in the lobby. We got like 1,000,000-foot ceilings in here. And I remember thinking, that doesn't look that big out here. My job as your pastor is to get your giant in this room. Because in this room, he's nobody and nothing. You know, dragging this thing around your whole life, a bully seems like a big deal till dad walks up. You're not thinking about it right. It's never the size of the giant. It's the size of the room that you're fighting it in. You know what we're trying to do with our giants? We did this in our family. We got this wrong for decades. You're trying to fight your giant inside the four walls of your house or inside your own mind. That is not the field that a giant goes down in. It will always stay a giant, if that's why, because your motivation isn't even right. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall, 9'9", it says. He wore a bronze helmet and a bronze coat of mail weighing 125 pounds. Some people weigh 125 pounds, people like me. That's like carrying me around as a jacket. That's just part of the armor. I'm like, this dude is tough. He also wore bronze leg armor and carried a bronze javelin. So it's telling you all the places that he's unbeatable in. And when the devil points you at Goliath, he just shines a spotlight on all the shiny places that you'll never beat. Which you won't. Like, you're not going to get. But you know what? David doesn't aim for the pieces that are unbreakable. All he needs is one big fat forehead. And the place your giant goes down is not the place that you think and the place that you're attacking it. You know when your giant goes down? You know when the clock starts ticking on your giant? Is when you actually go from being a spectator to going to the 7-minute party, getting signed up for pizza with pastors, joining a small group, joining the serving team, and giving. The clock starts ticking on your giant. That's why as soon as you start moving towards Christ and his body in the church, the pressure goes up because the devil knows my time is running out. If I can get them out right now, if I can isolate them, if I can get them back fighting one-on-one with this giant, he stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. Well, it says that, it goes on to explain, but verse 8, why are you all coming out to fight? I'm the Philistine champion. Watch his goal. You're only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we'll be your slaves. But if I kill him, you'll be our slaves. So he's like, he's trying to get one guy out of there by himself to fight. And that's what he's done with you. That's why he's still your giant. If you dogpile, I don't care how big you are, if you dogpile that robot with everybody in this room, that robot's going to die. Ryan Carmel sent me a picture of that robot when I was away and added lasers out of its eyes and says, I think we might have a problem. It was hilarious. I should put that on screen, but I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. So think about King Saul. The Bible says that he was head and shoulders above the people in height. So as far as a giant, he was kind of a giant himself, like head and shoulders above. So I'm like 6'3", so head and shoulders above that, or whatever. Head and shoulders. So he was kind of the obvious giant, and I think this is where we get a little bit discouraged, is that the person that we thought could beat the giant for us, the obvious choice, hasn't done it. When you place your hope in somebody to maybe, it's not like people don't help with the giant, but you got to understand it's God who kills the giant. So when you place your hope in the obvious choice, but the obvious choice fails you because they're too worried about their own skin, sometimes the person you hoped would help doesn't. And then sometimes God sends you somebody who's a lot smaller in your mind, but a lot mightier in the Lord, too. I mean, I look around the room at who God is using the most in the city right now. I'm like, 10 years ago, you would not have guessed that of them. Will this person be mighty in the sight of the Lord in the city? Like, this person can't even go one day without drinking. This person can't even... But God can do anything. For 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistine champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. It's like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Well, for 40 days, the supply lines to the army is bleeding the country of food and resources. Because they're still eating, but they're not doing anything with it. And it's like the Christian who's like super proud about how much Bible they read, but they're not helping anybody with it. It's like belly up to the buffet, and then they complain that the lights are in my eyes or whatever. And I'm like, maybe if you'd help people and had somebody sitting beside you, maybe you'd care less about, but you're using the, Pastor Mike likes that one. I shoot one of those every now and again. It's this whole idea of like, it's taking all your attention while you're bleeding all your energy and all your money and all your food and all your kids' attention because you're focused on here, but you're not working with any of it, and you're slowly depleting. One day, Jesse, David's dad, says, take this basket of roasted grain and these 10 loaves, carry them to your brothers, give these 10 cuts of cheese to their small group leader. It's just weird, but this is what they would do. See how your brothers are getting along and bring back a report. And David left his things with the keeper of supplies of the army and hurried out to the ranks to greet his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. David heard him shout his usual taunt to the armies of Israel. And that word usual, I just want to key on for a moment here, is that the thing that has become usual and normal to you, the way that the giant is talking to you. David's hearing this with fresh ears, and it drives him crazy. And I hope that you have friends. I hope that you're in a small group. I hope you're serving with people, that the thing that you have been putting up with for so long, that thing that is just decimating you and telling you you're no good, that you get along beside somebody who's like, why is that thing talking to you like that? Did you forget that you're a child of the living God? That Jesus has... Why? What's happening? Like, why are you... So... As soon as the Israelite army saw him, they began to run away in fright. I'm like, and for 40 days, he hasn't thrown a spear yet. That the head of the spear was 15 pounds. Maybe he couldn't throw it. But 15 pounds. Have you seen this giant? All this drama. He comes out each day to defy Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him. He will give that man his daughter Ailish. And the man's entire family will be exempted from paying taxes. And David's like, hello, I've been hanging around sheep. That sounds awesome. Ailish. That's what they used to do. They'd give one of their daughters away of like, hey, man, if somebody takes that city, I think it was at Jerusalem, if somebody gets in there and figures out a way to get a bunch of guys in there and get that gate open, you can have one of my daughters. I'm going to stop talking right now. I'm already in trouble, but I just want to see. When David's older brother Eliab heard David talking, he was angry. What are you doing around here anyways? Watch this. This is supposed to be somebody on his team. Somebody on his side. What about those few sheep that you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. Well, sometimes you get friendly fire when you're starting to step out against that giant, or you're incensed by something that everybody else has accepted. You get friendly fire from somebody who's supposed to be on your team, but you find out that they're starting to accuse you of what's in their heart. Your pride and deceit? Well, I don't think David is deceitful or proud. He's been hanging around sheep. I mean, there's thought that he was an illegitimate son of Jesse. Like, he was not even invited to the king-making party. Like, this guy has nothing to be proud about. Or he has nothing to lie about either, you know? And so, don't expect, when you start moving out against the giant, don't expect everybody to love it. Because your family, you know, that's why the family of God matters so much. Your own family might not have been supportive of God's work in your life, but this family is. We're going to like cheer you on and be like, you can do this. I remember talking to a pastor. So many pastors were kind of settled in on the idea of what could be done in Canada with church. And then I talked to one guy, Pastor Jonathan, in Experience Church. And he says to me, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I think we could do something great. I think it's time for Canada. We've never had a move of God. I think we could be a part of one. And he goes, yeah, we can do that. And I'm like, okay. Like, oh, well, okay. You don't want those friends who are always like, oh, you got to be careful. No, we tried that. It didn't work. I'm like, oh my, get some friends with some grit and some faith. Then, also, people don't love when, I've already talked about this, people don't love when you start getting free. Because then they'd have to stop telling themselves the stories about why they're still drinking until the wee hours of the night when their kids are at home. You know, like, you don't have to live like that anymore when God has so much more for you. But when you move towards it, just expect other people not to love that either, because it's a challenge to their lives, you know. Yeah. What have I done now? David replied, I was only asking a question. Don't worry about the Philistine. David told Saul, I'm just going to skip down a little bit here. I'll go fight him. So Saul, everybody's had this story about why they can't possibly win. And David's like, stop worrying, king. Like, which would be super annoying if I was King Saul of like, what? But he is worried. Saul replied, don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight the Philistine and possibly win. Well, that's true. He says, you're only a boy. He's been a man of war since his youth. You want to know David's secret? He's not trying to survive. That's Saul's problem. He's trying to win in a way he doesn't die. David isn't even thinking about surviving the day. He's just mad that that giant head is on that giant body, and it's defying his God. And I think that's why sometimes your giant is still alive and well. It's because you're trying to win, you're trying to survive, you're trying to... Well, what if you took a different stance? It opens up warfare in a whole different thing if you're not trying to live anymore. Jesus said, take up your cross daily and follow me. We're like, God, I want the resurrection. I want this giant to die, and I want resurrected life. And Jesus is like, great. The cross had one outcome. Death. Death to self. This is the end of me. Nobody ever got off of one. Your motivation of getting free of your giant, you should write this down, is personal happiness. It will not be enough. If your giant goes on living, it's going to hurt and kill the people around you too. David is not thinking about his own life. He's thinking that he doesn't want his brothers to be slaves of the Philistine. He's thinking, I don't want my mom and my dad to be under that guy. He is so incensed, he's like, I will give my life so that that doesn't possibly happen. I'm going to stop trying to live through it. Just go after it and see what God will do. It's like kids who struggle with the stuff they can get on this, but they think that this is a human right. Here's a secret. Before this, we were okay. In fact, maybe we were better and smarter. You're like, no, you weren't. We have more information. I'm like, you're dumber. You're dumber than Grandpa. Because Grandpa didn't need the information. He just needed to figure out how it worked. Not to have 47 billion ways about how it doesn't work. And a bunch of theories about people who are experts. I would love, you read parenting books? You know what's better than reading a parenting book? Meeting the children of the people who wrote the book. He's thinking. This is not a human right. You want your kid addicted to porn by the time they're 8? Or what we could do is filter the heck out of these things, make them lock, we made our kids lock it up, lock up the TV remote controls, and you're like, oh, you didn't do that to your kids. I'm like, well, the reason is, and I told my kids, I'm like, I talk to people 20 years down the road when they can't think a clean thought anymore, and they have no connection in their life, and no joy, and all the pleasure has run out, and there's only evil there. I'm like, I don't want that for you, so let's change the game and do something different. Well, what would you have to do to break the addiction if you weren't trying to maintain your personal happiness through it? Sin makes you happy. You're like, what? I'm like, you're not doing it right if you don't. For a while. It's different than the joy of the Lord in your life. It will come back and bite you and eat your heart out. Come on. It will take every relationship and everybody that you love and hurt them and hurt you. You got to get upset about it a little bit and stop trying to live through it. David persisted, I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. When a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal has the nerve to turn on me, I just added this, but catch this teenager. I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. This kid is vicious. Stop wanting nice people on your team. Nice people don't do anything. Sometimes husbands and wives, sometimes we're like, I just want there to be peace in my home. I used to kind of want that. I think Erin's a peacemaker. She really wanted that. You know what's better than never arguing about anything? Building something with your life. You can't build and fight a war without some arguments in there. I'm glad I married a gal who's fired up and passionate, wrong in every argument, but you know what's better than peace? People getting set free and going to heaven. That's what's better than like me not having any arguments in my life and not having to deal with any power struggles. I want to build something. I've done this to lions and bears. I'll do it to this pagan Philistine. He has defied the armies of the living God. But the Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine too. He's like, it's not so big. It's not so big. Saul finally consented. Go ahead, and may the Lord be with you, because he doesn't need to be with me because I'm not doing anything. Like, oh, God, I just want you to be with me. God's like, well, if you did something, then I would have something to be with. But we're working over here. It's like wanting to connect with Dad and have a tea party. Well, maybe your dad had a tea party with you. My dad worked. So if I wanted to connect with Dad, I went to church. And we have a great relationship because we worked the field of the Lord together. That's good. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them into his shepherd's bag. Armed only with a shepherd's staff and sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. So I was like, try my armor on, but David tried it on, but it didn't fit him. He wasn't used to it. There's something in there, too. You can't fight the devil with verses that somebody else has memorized from the Bible. Like, if you don't have a prayer life, you can't piggyback on somebody else's prayer life. Like, you got to be good with something. And these shepherd boys from 20 and 30 yards could graze the nose of a sheep and turn them around. I'm like, so he was good with what he had, but he didn't have much. And some of us are like, God, if you would give me more, then I would give. And God's like, I gave you something, though, and you're not giving that. So why do you think that if I give you more, you would give? The more you have, the harder it is, in fact. He's like, well, God, if you would give me forgiveness, then I would forgive. And God's like, forgiveness is a choice. I can work on your heart stuff. It's going to be hard. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, and it doesn't make it right. But you got to open your mouth and forgive. You got to, what do you have in your pocket? Well, let's use that. If all you got's a stone, then use that. Goliath walked out. We've already read this part. David says, today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. With what? He's got a stick. And then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals. This is where David just gets saucy. And Goliath is like, I'm going to feed your bodies to the fish. David's like, I'm going to feed your bodies to the birds in the wild. You coming to me, you looking at me, I'm looking at you. I'm going to cut your head off. And everyone here will know the Lord rescues his people. The verse before says, and the whole world will know that David is amazing. That there is a God in Israel. That I beat my addiction to drugs. You did? Or God did? Who gets the glory out of this one? Well, maybe that's why the giant's still there. This is the Lord's battle. He will give you to us. Goliath moved closer to attack. David quickly ran out to meet him. You need the crazies in your life, I'm just telling you. Reaching into his shepherd's bag, he took out a stone, hurled it with his sling, and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down on the ground. Well, that's another way that the giant doesn't look that big. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and stone, for he had no sword. Then he ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from his sheath. Somehow. He used it to kill him and cut off his head. I think we need some vicious Christians out there. I don't mean like vicious towards people. We've had enough of that. I mean vicious towards the devil and vicious towards Goliaths and protecting the poor and protecting those who need justice. But basically angry at giants. David later takes Goliath's sword as his own, it says in the scriptures. And the very thing that has been threatening you this whole time, maybe God will give to you as a weapon one day, so that when the person beside you in church is like, I'll never beat this giant. I just got divorced and my kids and you're like, oh, sweetheart, it feels like it's over now, but it's not. In fact, God has made something beautiful out of the ashes of my life. And in spite of the pain and in spite of the, God has done something in me that I actually I don't wish it was different. I don't wish it was different because of what God did. And because all the people I get to help. My Uncle Dean, he was my favorite uncle. He was a lot younger than my dad, but in the farmyard, there was this turkey. You guys know anything about turkeys? Turkeys are vicious. They're crazy. If they sense weakness, they'll get around other turkeys and be like, oh, we should peck this thing to death. This one turkey became an enemy of Dean, and Dean was 5 years old. Every time Dean would walk out in the farmyard, this turkey would come after him, get at him, and Dean lived in terror of this turkey. And one day, my dad was talking with Grandpa, and they're like, where'd that turkey go? Dean seems very confident. Walking around the farmyard now, like, what's up? This is my farmyard now. Like, what happened to that turkey? Well, Dean one day decided in true Kope fashion that he had had enough. And he fashioned a club about half the length of his little body. It says, David said, I went after it with a club to do what? To find my personal happiness, to save the life of a lamb. Dean one day strolled out into the middle of the yard with a little club. It's like, turkey, turkey. Turkey, 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 turkey. The thing comes along instead of running away. And he beat that thing to death. And dragged it into the bushes. Don't tell Dad. I think we need some turkey-beaten Christians. I think you need friends that are turkey killers. Who are like, I made this club. Do you want to see this club? Let's go beat this thing to death. We've been talking to it. We've been getting counseled around it. Get counseling. You need it. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to make a club and beat the thing to death. And if you die, you die. And if you live, you live. But at least your younger brothers and sisters aren't going to have to worry about the turkey in the yard anymore. Go find the turkey and beat it to death. No, don't put that online. There's something that the devil's been stealing from you. Why don't you get mad? Why don't you get upset about it and realize you're just using me to get at Dad? That's not going to happen anymore. And a year from now, this giant's not going to be alive and talking in my face anymore. In fact, this is going to be a story that I tell for the glory of God. Father, we're sorry that we have tried to fight the giant in our own home, in our own hearts, in our own mind because of our pride. How can we, by pride, beat the giant whose author is the father of pride and the father of lies? We want to come in humility into the family of God. Get integrated. Give our lives to the Lord. In Jesus' name. If somebody here needs to give your life to Jesus, it starts with a relationship. And you could start this very simply by praying this prayer, then go to the prayer corner and we'll tell you what to do with our hosting team. Pray this prayer after me. And if you're a son or daughter of God, let's help them have a little bit of courage by repeating this. Jesus, my sins are keeping me from you, from a holy Father. Would you forgive my sins by your blood and resurrect my life to belong to you, my Lord and Savior. Amen.